So I want to, in this talk, I want to develop a knowledge first account of group knowledge. So I want to extend knowledge first epistemology to phenomenon of group knowledge. So, namely, I want to relate to trending topics in contemporary epistemology. I want to relate to the discussion of group knowledge and the discussion of knowledge first epistemology as Timothy Willis developed in this book, Knowledge and Its Limits. So, I want to underline that in social epistemology of group knowledge, no one has yet seriously applied and developed Timothy Willis' theory of knowledge first approach. Typically, group knowledge is understood in terms of more basic concepts. For example, typically group knowledge is understood in terms of group belief, group acceptance, group justification, and so on. But if Timothy Willis' account is a correct view of knowledge, we cannot reduce knowledge to more basic components. We cannot understand knowledge in terms of belief, justification, and so on. So, in this talk, I want to analyze what consequences Timothy Willis' theory has for social epistemology, namely for an understanding of group knowledge. That is my main point in this talk. Okay, so in order to fulfill my aim, I want to follow this plan. I want to start by see what is knowledge first epistemology. After that, what is group epistemology, and I want to see in point 4 what are the consequences of knowledge first epistemology for group epistemology. So in my point 4, I want towards knowledge group epistemology. But there is an important point in this case. In order to understand very well the group epistemology based on knowledge first epistemology, we need to appeal to collective mental states. And to make sense of collective mental states, I need the extended mind thesis to make sense of that. And I want to conclude with a non-summativist case for knowledge first group epistemology. So let's start with the first point, what is the knowledge first epistemology? So this is an account that is developed in this book, Knowledge and Its Limits, and Timothy Willis argues that the concept knows cannot be analyzable into more basic concepts such as belief, truth, and justification. He said that this is confirmed inductively by the continued failure to solve the Gettier problem. Instead, according to Timothy Williamson, knowledge is prior to other epistemic kinds, being the concept of knowing a theoretical primitive. So, according to Timothy Willis, we use the concept of knowledge in order to explain other concepts like the concept of belief, justification, and so on. So, first, we have knowledge, and we have knowledge explain other concepts. So knowledge is prior to belief, to justification, and so on. Although knowledge cannot be analyzable and reducible into more basic components, according to Timothy Wilson, a sufficiently informative characterization can be present. So we can, so while we not have a necessary and sufficient conditions for knowledge, we can present a positive characterization of knowledge. And Williamson proposed is to give a positive and externalistic understanding of knowledge, a state of mind or a mental state. Namely, according to Timothy Williamson, knowledge is the most general effective mental state. And we need to clarify what it means, what is the most general effective mental state. The first clarification is following. Knowing is merely a state of mind. So contrary to the orthodox proposal or approach, knowledge is not a hybrid of mental and non-mental elements. So knowledge, according to Timothy Williams, is not a conjunction of mental and non-mental components like belief more plus true plus justification. Instead, knowledge is a purely and only a mental state. The second clarification is the following. Unlike mental states like imagine, desiring, hoping, and so on, the mental state of knowing is effective. And effective truth is one that a subject S can have only true. So from S knows that P, we can conclude that P is true. And the last clarification is the following. Knowing is not just the effective mental state, but the most general of that kind, is the most general effective mental state. For the other effective mental states, like perceiving that P or remember that P, implying knowing that P. So we can conclude and to summarize that knowledge, according to Williams and knowledge first approach, knowledge is the most general effective mental state. So that is the main explanation of knowledge first epistemology. So let's see what is group epistemology. I want to underline that knowledge is usually attributed to groups. For example, we can say the following. The United Nations know that coronavirus is widening global inequality. We can attribute that to a group. Or we can say the following. The World Health Organization knows that the likelihood of a second wave of coronavirus is 8. Or we can say also that the jury knows that the accused is innocent or guilty. But how to understand this group knowledge attributions? Can we say that a group literally have knowledge? How to understand group knowledge? Is this group knowledge always reducible or not to its individual members? How to understand group knowledge? That is the main point of group epistemology. And as answer to that questions, we have there are two main perspectives in confrontation. The first one is the summativist perspective or the summativist view, according to which group knowledge is always reducible to individual knowledge. So attributing knowledge to a group is an indirect way to attribute knowledge to its individual members. So necessarily a group G has knowledge K only if at least one individual A is both a member of G and has that knowledge K. So according to summativism, always a reduction of knowledge. Group knowledge is interpreted in the sense that the members have that knowledge. But there are another view, is the non-summativist view, and the non-summativist view says the contrary, is the negation of summativism. According to the non-summativism, there is a divergence between what the group knows and what the individual members know. So according to non-summativism, it is possible that a group knows something without individual members have that knowledge. So possibly a group G has knowledge K, even when no individual member of G has that knowledge K. So that are the main answers to understand what is the group knowledge. So let's go to next point. If Timothy Whelan's approach to knowledge first epistemology is a correct view, how should group knowledge be understood? Should it be understood in a summativist way, in a reductive way, or instead in a non-summativist way? How to understand group knowledge if knowledge first epistemology is a correct view? And when Timothy Williamson discussed the nature of evidence in this book, in knowledge and its limits, I think that he appears to be inclined to accept non-summativism. For example, Timothy Williams says the following: the communal case is needed, depends on public evidence, which is neither the union nor the intersection of evidence of each scientist. We can ascribe such knowledge by saying that P is known in community S, or that we know P, which is not equivalent to saying that some, many, most, or all of us know P. So it seems that Timothy Williamson is committed with a non-summativist perspective, with a non-reductive perspective to understand group knowledge. So, although Timothy Williamson does not develop his argument beyond this quote in this book, he seems to accept that group knowledge cannot be reducible to individual knowledge and to individual affective mental states. Instead, in order to make sense of knowledge first approach to group knowledge, one has to resort to collective affective mental states in order to accommodate group knowledge. We need to appeal to collective mental states in a non-reductive way. Thus, following Timothy Williamson, a consequence of knowledge first approach for understanding group knowledge is to account for affective mental states at collective level in a ways that are not reducible to reducible at the individual level. But there are a problem. We can say that a group have literally a mind. Can a group have literally a mind? Are there collective affective mental states in a non-reductive way? Can a group have really a mind? And the main resistance to collective mental states or to collective or to group minds is as follows. We can formulate the following argument. Premise 1: mental states are located in minds and minds are in heads. Groups literally understood and itself, groups do not have heads or brains, and therefore we can conclude that groups cannot have minds or mental states or collective mental states. But is this a good argument? We have a good argument. I think we can deny one some premise in this argument. I think we can deny premise 1 based on the extended mind thesis. And I think that the extended mind thesis can give us support also to understand collective mental states in non-reductive way. So I think if we accept the extended mind thesis as developed by Clark and Chalmers, we can deny premise one and say that the minds can extend beyond the heads. We can have minds that act in the world. So the extended mind thesis says the following: the realization of mental states sometimes extend beyond skin and skull boundaries to include non-biological material components and or other biological individuals. So we can put that in a slogan and say the following: cognitive process ain't all in the head, or mental state ain't all in the head. In other words, our mind can extend in the world. Our mind can extend in the notebook. Our mind can extend in our iPhone or iPad and so on. Um, in support of the extended mind thesis, Clark and Chalmers propose an analogy between Inga and Otto cases. The first case, the Inga case, is the following. Suppose that Inga hears of an exhibition at Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in New York. She thinks, recall, it's on 53rd Street and set off. That is the case, a simple case. Now, suppose that we have another case, the Otto case, and in this case, suppose that Otto suffers from Alzheimer's. And as a result, he always carries a notebook. When Otto learns useful new information, he always writes it in the notebook. Suppose that he hears of exhibition at MoMA, who drives the address from his notebook and set off. Well, what we can conclude in this case? We can say that Inga and Otto, both Inga and Otto, have at least a dispositional belief and dispositional knowledge about museum location. So we can say that both have a dispositional belief. And we can say that because the notebook in the Otto case seems to play a similar functional role as the brain in the Inga case when she remembers the address of the museum. So we can conclude that Otto minds include his notebook because it works as functionally equivalent with a part of the brain. Just as Inga believes in the museum location for consulting her biological memory, so Otto believes in the museum location before consulting his notebook. So we can say that both Inga and Otto have a dispositional belief and the dispositional knowledge in the museum location. So according to the extended mind thesis, not only Inga but also Otto knew even before consulting his notebook where the museum was. But I want to stress and underline the following. We can understood the extended mind thesis in a different way because there are two different versions of the extended mind thesis. The first version of the extended mind thesis is committed with following. It is Otto, the individual Otto, the biological Otto, who believes that the museum is on 53rd Street. But there is another version of the extended mind thesis that says the following. It is the couple system, it is the hybrid system, it is the couple Otto and notebook system, it is old system, for short Otto plus, rather than biological individual Otto that believes that the museum is on 53rd Street. There are several reasons to prefer the version 2 instead of the version 1. I only have time to present one of that reasons. Uh, I think that the version 1 of extended mind thesis implausibly implies that Otto no longer suffers any deficiency in memory, but that is very implausible because he continued to have Alzheimer. But I think that if you accept the version 2 of extended mind thesis, does not have that consequence. Because the individual Otto in the second version continue to have Alzheimer and a problem in the memory. It is only the couple system that lacks such efficiency. And I think uh, with the extended mind thesis in that version 2 gives support to collective mental states in a non-summativist way. So according to the version 2 of extended mind thesis, the interaction between individuals and artifacts or other individuals originate a couple system or a hybrid system that function as a cognitive system in its own right. And I think that we can understand what is group mind or collective mental states in terms of extended mind thesis in this version 2. So group mentality is a form of the version 2 of extended mind thesis. In other words, minds or collective mental states are realized in couple systems that are constituted primarily by interaction between humans. So we can say that similarly to what happens in the Otto case, in which there is a couple system, that is Otto plus, with mental states formed by interaction between Otto and his notebook, I think that it is also possible that a group and certain interactions between individuals form a couple system with mental states. So we can, with the extended mind thesis, we can understand better what is the group mind and collective mental states. That is my point. And to conclude, I want to say the following. Based on the previous points, we can present a non-summativist case for knowledge first group epistemology. So my case is the following. Imagine Inga and Olaf is a couple. They are a couple. Imagine that Inga and Olaf want to go to location X to location Y. Which one only partially remembers the path? So which one individually doesn't know the full path from X to Y, okay? Which one individually does not know the full path? That is a very important thing. However, suppose that Inga and Olaf have been working together as a couple system. In such a case, the retrieval of all information about the path is done by Inga and Olaf working together. So, as a couple system, we can say, as a group, they remember the full path from X to Y, and they know that path. They know the full path. And if we accept the extended mind thesis in the version 2, and if extended mind thesis is true, we can say that Inga and Olaf as a couple system, as a group, knew and believe in a dispositional way the full path even before they consulting each other. So in this case, we can have a group in which the group know the full path, but in a dispositional way, but the individual members do not have that dispositional belief and that dispositional knowledge. And to conclude, let's summarize what we saw. And first thing, according to knowledge first epistemology, knowledge is most general affective mental state. That is my first point. Second point, a consequence of knowledge first approach for understanding group knowledge is to account for affective mental states at a collective level and in a non-reductive way. And I think we can make sense of collective mental states in a non-summativist way with the extended mind thesis in that version 2. And what is the main advantage of this approach? I think with knowledge first group epistemology, we might explain group justification, group evidence, group assertion, and so on by reference to group knowledge, and reversing the traditional order of explanation. Thank you a lot. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Domingos. So we have 4 minutes for questions.
I would like to have a question. So thank you very much for a very, very good talk. I'm very sympathetic with the extended mind thesis. My doubt is about the criteria of relevance that would allow us to delimit the extension to which the extended mind domain would really count as knowledge. So thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Maria, for your question. Your question is very important, and I need to think more about your question, because we need to have really a criterion of relevance in order to see what counts as group knowledge and what counts as extended mind. For example, Google is an extended mind of me. What is the criterion to accept something as extended mind? Chalmers and Clark gave some criterion for that. They said, for example, they need to always use the device. For example, in the auto case, the notebook needs to always serve as information and reliable information to where contents and what are the dispositional beliefs of auto. But I need to think more about that. What are the criterion and the criterion of relevance in order to fulfill group knowledge? Yeah, thank you for that question. I will go to see that point. Great for that question.
We have also other 3 questions. Let me check the order. David has a question.
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Domingos, for very enlightening, interesting presentation. My question is related to the peer disagreement in a group, for example, in a scientific community. What happens when in a group there is a peer disagreement? Is, for example, the summativist is forced to say that the group knows and not knows that P? And in that case, I suppose that non-summativist is a better position or explanation for accounting.
I agree with you, and I developed my account because I want to deal with peer disagreement, and and I want to apply the knowledge first epistemology to group disagreement. How to deal with peer disagreement between groups, among groups. And I think that knowledge first epistemology can give some lights for deal with that. Because what is the aim of the belief in group epistemology, on knowledge first epistemology? What is the aim of belief? The aim of belief is knowledge. So in the peer disagreement, I think that the group or the peers or the individual peers need to approximate or to survey what is the knowledge, where the knowledge is, and I need to see more how that account of knowledge first epistemology can apply to peer disagreement. That is my next point. That is my next point. Thank you for that, because that is very important for me. Thank you for that.
Thank you to you.
Domingos, we have also 2 other questions. I don't think we have enough time. I'm just going to read. You can have give a short answer, and then you can write after your answer in the chat. So from Felipe Nogueira, he said, sometimes we say that the group knows that P because one member of the group knows that P, and we have placed our trust upon that member to be a representative of the group. Say only the President of the United Nations knows that the coronavirus is causing an increase in inequality. It seems that here it is only the President's mental state that counts. We may be oblivious to this issue and have only placed our trust initially in that person when the group was formed. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And
yeah, I agree, because non-summativist is a more moderate position, while summativism says that always group knowledge is reducible to individual knowledge. Non-summativism says that always, sometimes we can have a divergence between group knowledge and individual members' knowledge. So I agree that sometimes we can say that and make the reduction, but not always. I agree with Philip. Thank you.
And Itamar say many thanks, Domingos. I understood that you're assuming from the outset, Williamston contention, that knowledge comes down to most general factive mental states. Now, do you admit that subjects in a group may have a factive mental state that fails to be cognitive, especially when taking into account extended cognition?
I need to think more about that. Thank you for the question. I need to survey if that is true or not, but I'm inclined to accept that. Thank you. I will approfundate that question. Thank you for that. Thank you for all the questions, and this is an amazing event. Thank you, Sophia, and all for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Domingos.